Major funding for Carolina Business Review is provided by Grant Thornton, an international accounting, tax, and business advisory organization dedicated to serving middle-market companies. Grant Thornton, a passion for the business of accounting. Novant HEALTH, including Presbyterian in Charlotte and Forsyth in Winston-Salem, are affiliate heart hospitals of the Cleveland Clinic, consistently ranked #1 in the nation for heart care. Blue Cross and Blue Shield of South Carolina, proudly serving South Carolinians since 1946. And by Sunoco, a global manufacturer of consumer and industrial packaging products and provider of packaging services with more than 300 operations in 35 countries.
Someone who just woke up from a 20-year coma would no doubt be confused, a lot like I am right now, or at least at a communication disadvantage. Imagine responding for the first time to someone who speaks to you using terms like blogosphere, Google, 24/7, LOL, wardrobe malfunction. We truly do love our hip lexicon and shorthand language. Welcome again, and thanks for supporting the most widely watched program on Carolina business and public policy. Another favorite phrase? The knowledge economy. However, there is an ocean of difference between understanding the term and grasping the implication of the knowledge economy's significance. And it goes well beyond just pushing along our commercial ventures. How pervasive is it? We start to answer with our three experts in just a moment.
Major funding also by the Duke Endowment, a private foundation in Charlotte enriching communities in the Carolinas through higher education, healthcare, rural churches, and children's services. And by Blue Cross and Blue Shield of North Carolina. Who's responsible for rising healthcare costs? Join Blue Cross and Blue Shield of North Carolina and many others in a candid discussion at letstalkcost.com. This edition of Carolina Business Review was recorded May 11th, 2012. On this week's program, Dr. John Hardin of the North Carolina Department of Commerce, Ambrose Schwallie of the South Carolina Research Authority, and Wayne Roper of SCBIO. Now, Chris William.
Hello, welcome to our program. Gentlemen, good to have you here. Thank you. Thanks for joining us. Well, a little trouble technically getting some, but you're very patient. Thank you. John, I'm going to start with you. You know, the knowledge economy's been around for a while, but it is such an innocuous term. I mean, we use it interchangeably with so many things now. What is the knowledge economy, and will it supplant like manufacturing or biotech or retail or tourism? What is the knowledge economy?
Well, Chris, I'm sure if you asked 10 different people, you might get 10 different answers on that. I'll give you my definition, which is probably a pretty broad, comprehensive definition into which you could fit many of the things you just mentioned. But at its core, an economy is simply a system of allocating scarce resources. And everything in the world is scarce, everything's finite. And so we have to have a way of recombining those things that in a way that they're valuable and people can use and people can consume them. So the system we use in the United States primarily is the market system. And when we say knowledge economy, what we mean is that market system is driven as much by people's brains now as it is by brawn. And so whether you're manufacturing something or you're providing a service, the quality of the mental input that goes into that, the way it's produced, matters as much or more now than it ever has. And so biotechnology is part of the knowledge economy. Manufacturing is part of the knowledge economy. Manufacturing is not so much going away as it's changing. It's becoming smarter and leaner. And that's what we're talking about when it comes to the knowledge economy.
Okay, a little program note. That also on our panel was at least planned to have Norris Tolson from the North Carolina Biotech Center, and due to some technical challenges, he will not be joining us. But Ambrose and Wayne, welcome to the dialogue as well. Let's talk about, let's drill down here a little bit more. Is you know, and especially in South Carolina, when a lot of the old line textile business, a lot of the old farming business, some of the old last century type of business is now being replaced by what South Carolina Research Authority has been able to build a nucleus around. But and let me start with you, Wayne. When we talk about manufacturing and when we talk about the knowledge economy, manufacturing has been getting a lot of press of late, right, that there's some resurgence going on in manufacturing, and arguably it's true. Is that something that, does the knowledge economy now kind of fall to the background and is just running in the background, or is this the bigger picture that we're talking about?
Well, the knowledge economy is about doing something new that isn't done anywhere else in the world. It's a one-of-a-kind kind of thing.
And what does that mean?
Well, that means that when you're doing manufacturing, you're bringing a process, you're bringing a product, you're doing something that is competitive and in a scale, in a category of its own. And so
Proprietary to whatever that process is?
that's exactly right, because what we're finding is in a global economy, everyone can do the basics, the commodities well. And to expand an economy, you need to do something particularly new and different. And what I'm finding in South Carolina is this is transcending any economic sector. It's accounting, it's in lawyers, law firms. Everyone is getting the innovation message. And in South Carolina, for instance, you mentioned the textile background that we have.
Yeah.
South Carolina has made a lot of changes. South Carolina now is 18th. It's ranked 18th in preparing for the knowledge economy. We now have an automotive sector with advanced manufacturing. You mentioned manufacturing. Last year, South Carolina announced 13,000 new manufacturing jobs, and those are high-end jobs, high manufacturing jobs. And they require some advanced degrees and some advanced education beyond high school. These aren't your old assembly line jobs.
Ambrose, but this is a pretty broad term. I mean, what makes South Carolina, or what makes North Carolina, for that matter, John, special? But Ambrose, I mean, isn't everybody doing it? Isn't Virginia doing it? Isn't Georgia doing it? Aren't other countries doing it? What makes it such a great competitive advantage that we have?
Well, you're right. Everybody is doing it. And the challenge is to differentiate what you offer and what you can produce versus anybody else.
For instance?
Before the knowledge economy, let me just go to that. We always had competition. It's in the free marketplace. You buy the pair of shoes that has the best value to you. It's just like it is today. States compete among each other for a differentiable value for why companies want to be in that state or that region or that area. So it's using the clever mindset and technology driving solutions that provide a better value system for companies to be located and participating in what they're doing. Mm-hmm. If you look at Boeing, why did Boeing come to South Carolina? There's a lot of reasons associated with labor force and all that kind of thing, but the implementation of technology and what they're doing in sourcing products from around the world, coming there into Charleston, resulting in that fantastic airplane, most complicated airplane built to date, is an incredible evolution of the integration of talent, people, and technology.
And okay, John, I want to take the same question to you. What makes North Carolina, what makes the Carolinas have an edge when it comes to the knowledge economy? Why wouldn't it be the same everywhere else, which would bring a common denominator?
Well, if you ask most companies why they relocate from one state to another or why they start up in a certain state, one of the first things they're always going to mention is the workforce. You need to have a skilled workforce at all levels, not a bunch of PhDs and only PhDs. You need PhD level workers, you need 4-year college degree workers, you need associate's degree workers, and you need high school age degree workers that are well qualified. And the North Carolina has put a particular emphasis on that. The last several governors have focused on education and have brought North Carolina up from being relatively low in education rankings and workforce rankings to fairly high in those rankings. And North Carolina also has one of the strongest university systems as well as one of the strongest community college systems. So it's one thing that we always tout when we're talking to companies both within North Carolina and outside of North Carolina that want to come to North Carolina is the workforce. And it's not just the workforce, it's all the amenities associated with that. The knowledge economy worker wants the amenities. They want to be able to...
Okay, and let me follow up, not to interrupt you, hold on just a second, Wayne. You know, when you talk about the past gubernatorial administrations that have done this work that it takes, so to use a metaphor, how far is the antelope in the boa constrictor, how far along are we in this process before is coming to fruition now? Will we see much more dramatic results in 5 years or 20 years? When does it?
It's coming to fruition now, but it's going to be coming to fruition almost perpetually.
So it blooms for quite a while.
Right. It's constantly evolving. What we do is driven by the world economy pace. I mean, we are in the world economy, and so it's not just one state competing against another state. It's one state and companies competing against nations and companies around the world. And so as the pace increases, we need to increase as well. So educational standards will increase, speed to production and distribution will increase, and everything is just on a faster pace.
Wayne?
The point about workforce is flexibility and the ability to adapt, because many of the high-demand jobs now didn't even exist 20 years ago. So when you start your education career with one track in mind, you're going to have a lot of changes in store for your career. And in South Carolina, they try to partner with industries to really align with the program that universities have with what the industries need. And they have several programs to do that. And you have to do that because the changes in the technology that industries are using, the changes in the product, it takes a lot of flexibility, and that takes some well-educated staff.
And let me, hold on one second, Ambrose, and let me stay with you on this one. Coming up on one of our future programs, a gentleman named Ernest Andrade, and you know, probably know Ernest from the Digital Corridor down at Charleston. What Ernest has said is he has to work in K through 12 to get the outcome much later in the cycle, to get the right people in the seats, in the jobs, and of course they have to be the right people. I would say from a public policy standpoint, Wayne, do you get the sense that there's a legislative priority to get it right, even given the tough budgets? Do you think the South Carolina State House gets this? I mean, do they really get it enough to prioritize it?
Well, you know, I think everybody needs to get it, and definitely we're in South Carolina Bio knows that we need more people in science and technology and engineering and math core courses. What you're talking about is really the pipeline problem. That even those people who are taking some of those advanced placement courses in college, they are dropping out of the pipeline by the time they get to college, and they are not going on to advanced degrees. And I think in many respects, what's happening is we're doing good on content, but not so good on inspiration and motivation. We've so filled the classroom with content that we've kind of drained people up with why do we need to learn all this? And that's where I think industry needs to step up and get into the classroom, show them what a research chemist is, show them what the problem solving is. And I think in South Carolina they're doing that. In college, they're starting with undergraduate research programs that tell the student, you know, what you're studying solves problems. If you want to be a problem solver, if you want to make a difference in your environment and in your community, you need to start learning the language of problem solving, which is math and engineering and science. But they start with an early exposure to what research is.
Yeah, Ambrose, you're going to...
Well, I'll just build on that. A classic case is Boeing. 7,000 workers required in under 2 years. With the tech school system there in Charleston, they built an applied laboratory, mocking up much of that facility. The people are there, the skills are there that can be learned and have been shown that they've got 7,000 people through a pipeline, through the tech school system that was in alignment with the tech school and the industry together, and that workforce has produced that first airplane.
Is that workforce,
It's
do
incredible.
they have who they need?
They do.
Now they have.
They do. And the nice thing about it, and I'm not speaking for Boeing, but since we have collaborations there with them, I can tell you that their approach here was to train the workers to be multitask, multi-divisional, do several things. And that has worked, and I think it's been a very successful integration of the tech school system, the education system, with industry coming together and saying, what do you need? We'll provide it.
John, here's the rub. And we've heard this from Otis Rawl at the South Carolina Chamber. We've heard this from Bob Morgan at the Charlotte Chamber. We've heard it from businesses in both states. And the rub is that they say, that sounds good, but when it comes down to it, we can't find all the qualified people that we want. All these people unemployed, 8% unemployment, 8% plus, and in some counties, double that. Right. But the phenomenon is they're poaching good workers from each other. John, how do you characterize that? I mean, where does that come from, and how does that kind of put a wet blanket on any kind of forward momentum we are trying to build?
Well, what that says to me is that, well, it's a fairly well-known fact that the supply of trained knowledge workers is less than the demand. And that's because the demand for workers is changing very rapidly. And what that says to me is that all levels of our educational institutions need to rise to the challenge. They're working on it, but it's not something you can solve overnight.
Is it a funding issue? Is it, as Wayne said, is it a motivational and inspiration issue?
It's all of the above. You can get into philosophical questions whether it's a funding issue or not. Depending on, we might have enough resources, but they're not being deployed in an efficient manner. I can't really address that question, but what I would say is that what's clear is that the outcome, the number of trained workers is not what it needs to be. And it's going to really take, in my opinion, a comprehensive approach, a systematic approach, or systemic approach, because it's not just a single thing, it's several factors.
Just to be fair and equal pain all around here, I asked you about the South Carolina State House. Do you get the sense that the General Assembly in North Carolina, do they get it enough to commit the dollars that it will take to get those, I don't want to say kids, to get those talented workers coming out of the fantastic schools that we all have here?
Yeah.
Do they get it enough to fund it that way?
I think they get the what question. That is, they get the issue. They know there's an undersupply of trained workers. What is much harder to agree on is the how. How do you get those trained workers? Do you throw money at the problem, or do you, if you add more money, what's the most effective and efficient way to use that money? Where is that money needed? Where are the resources needed? Do you want to have an experiential-based learning program, or do you want to have a rote learning program? Do you want to have testing-based programs? And there's philosophical differences on those. And that's where the difficulty comes in, is the how and not so much the what.
Is there the community college system in North Carolina, the technical college system in South Carolina, seem to have stacked up some pretty good success? Ambrose, you talk about Boeing, and wow, what a great opportunity there. But are we missing something by not leaning more into the technical schools?
Could I react?
Please,
Please. Personal experience here. I think it's incumbent on companies to forecast and really set out there what they need. For example, when I was managing the Savannah River site, we had a shortage of skilled fire protection, health protection, certain kinds of crafts. And what we did is we went to the technical colleges in the area and said, we need this. And they jumped on it, put the programs together. So I think the workforce thing is more a combination of industry and the schools working together to forecast needs. And where I've seen that forecast, it can be delivered in fairly short time.
Yeah, but what was the life cycle of when you made the ask as the Savannah River boss, and when you got the talent?
About 2 years. About 2 years.
Right.
And we supplied a lot of the equipment to the tech school to mock up the work situations. They wrote the curriculums, developed the programs, the courses. And in about 2 years, we were getting some of the nation's best sophisticated health physics people that you can produce. Now, generally, health physics people are not produced in normal schools. That's a rarity. It's a profession that the nuclear industry needed. But we were able to overcome that shortage just by working with the education system and county government and that kind of thing to stimulate those programs and get it done.
By the way, thank you for just saying nuclear the right way. I just so appreciate that when someone, that you had being a little flippant with you, Ambrose. But go ahead, John.
Here's another buzzword. When you were talking about buzzwords earlier, public-private partnerships. What was just mentioned illustrates that.
But people, John, I'm sorry, but people roll their eyes when you talk about
I know, but let me give you a specific example of that. What I mean is just, teeing off the example that was just given. In North Carolina, biotechnology is a very important industry. North Carolina is generally ranked third in the nation in terms of biotechnology activity. About 10 years ago, the biotechnology industry came to educational leaders in the state at all levels, community college, university, K through 12, and said, we don't have enough trained workers. And they came together in a partnership, the private sector in partnership with the public sector, institutions of higher education, and came up with a curriculum and a system and a way of training these workers for the biotechnology industry in North Carolina. That's just one small example, similar to the Boeing example, but it really is a partnership, and that partnership is occurring worldwide now. It's not just individual companies competing against individual companies, it's governments and companies competing against other governments and companies.
And Chris, he brought up a very important point. It's so important that industry get engaged here, because from a government standpoint, from a state legislator standpoint, you can spend the entire budget on education, trying to educate everybody to an abstract level. But when industry says, here are some specifics, here's some specifics of what we need, and here's what we think you can do to get there, then it's just much easier for legislators to appropriate, to go with the program. In South Carolina, we have a Commission on Higher Education that will create new degree programs with the research universities if that's necessary to match them. But the specific case that begins with engagement with private industry is what really can move education much faster than waiting for a General Assembly to move the entire education system.
So who takes the lead? Is it a specific company? Is it industry in general? Is it a chamber initiative? I mean, I guess who's on the point of the spear?
It's all of those. It takes.
But how do you get all
everybody.
those people working together? That's the tough part, isn't it?
Well, it is tough, except we all have the same interest when it comes to workforce and education. Innovation is the goal. Everybody has to get there.
Okay, and again, there's another term that is so innocuous, and we all agree that innovation has got to be in the DNA of a company, or you're just not going to make it. So I guess the question is, who leads the argument? Who makes the point? Who comes out in a state like South Carolina when you got the South Carolina Research Authority, you got life science initiatives, you got USC, you got Clemson, you got MUSC, you got SCBIO, you got all of these great ideas and wonderfully smart people. But how do you get a single message to get the money and to get an initiative going? I guess that's the question. I'm sorry, Amber.
To me, that answer's clear. It's industry. It's industry that has to set the pace and set the need and demand the skills. One of the skills that we run into that's maybe a little different than we're thinking about right here on this show is we invest in startup companies and help those startup companies get from basic prototype demonstration through the valley of death to venture capital. Yeah. Talk about the human resource need we meet is competent CEOs and business people who can take a technology-driven entrepreneur and help him take that company through that valley of death to prosperity. That, to me, is a skill set that we're shorter on than the kind of skill sets we've been talking about in supplying workers to industry.
Okay, so John, you're on the administration side.
Correct.
Would you agree that industry needs to drive that? They need to run with the flag?
I would say in general, yes, that it's as much their responsibility as anybody's because they drive the economy. But there are some cases where industry may not always be the leader, and that's because they're often so busy focused on their own companies that they don't have time, understandably, to look at the bigger picture. If there's a more collective need for an industry, it's hard for a single company to necessarily rise to that. And so my office, the Office of Science and Technology, works with the Board of Science and Technology, which is an advisory board for state policymakers that works with government and works with industry to bring these people together to focus on common needs and common issues and to spotlight problems, to look down on the horizon and see what are the big issues coming forward. And so
we have about a minute left, and Wayne, we kind of went to you last, so I'm going to give you the last word here. What do you, in literally about a minute, what are you most excited about? And everything we've talked about, what do you look at and go, if we do this right, we're just going to knock it out of the park, if we can do this?
Well, I'm just really excited about what I see in that entrepreneurial spirit. People really do understand that it's about starting something new, that we can't all be selling each other hamburgers. We are going to do something new. And that message is rippling through all of South Carolina in any number of different measures. And so they're taking proprietary IP, intellectual property, they're commercializing it. Our research universities want to commercialize things in a stronger way. Even health systems are commercializing their research and their clinical practice. There is a new, they get it. The idea is to innovate and create something new.
Wayne, thank you for being here. Ambrose, good to see you. Thank you. John, always nice to see you. Thank you for being here as well. Thank you for watching our program. If you have any comments or suggestions or like to watch past programming, pretty simple, CarolinaBusinessReview.com. One big long word. Until next week, I'm Chris Whittam. Good night.
Major funding for Carolina Business Review was provided by the Duke Endowment, a private foundation in Charlotte enriching communities in the Carolinas through higher education, healthcare, rural churches, and children's services. Blue Cross and Blue Shield of North Carolina, who's responsible for rising healthcare costs. Join Blue Cross and Blue Shield of North Carolina and many others in a candid discussion at letstalkcost.com. Grant Thornton, an international accounting, tax, and business advisory organization dedicated to serving middle-market companies. Grant Thornton, a passion for the business of accounting. Novant Health, including Presbyterian in Charlotte and Forsyth in Winston-Salem, are affiliate heart hospitals of the Cleveland Clinic, consistently ranked #1 in the nation for heart care. Blue Cross and Blue Shield of South Carolina, proudly serving South Carolinians since 1946. Sunoco, a global manufacturer of consumer and industrial packaging products and provider of packaging services with more than 300 operations in 35 countries. And by viewers like you. Thank you. Promotional consideration provided by Business North Carolina Magazine. For more information, visit CarolinaBusinessReview.com.